Now it's time to take the time to introduce our panel, and thank you for coming. So, Gary, would you like to start off? You guys have got this down, I think.
Sure. I am Gary Grossman. Can everybody hear me?
Sounds good.
Okay. I was a California resident for 18 years, so I have some familiarity with the system. I have a bachelor's degree in conservation from Cal and a PhD from Davis in animal ecology and limnology. In 1981, I took a position as an assistant professor in the Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resources at the University of Georgia, and that's where I've been ever since. I've been a professor since 1992. I was a distinguished research professor from 2004 to 2009. I'm just going to kind of go through what I do here, so I hope not to bore you too much. My teaching responsibilities, I teach 2 classes a year. One is a large non-science major science course called Georgia Natural History. I like to think of it as ecology for art majors. It meets the general education requirement for these students for a science course. And then in alternate years, I teach 2 different graduate courses, one in vertebrate biodiversity and conservation, and the second in advanced fish ecology. Over the years, I've taught a variety of courses at Georgia, including fisheries management, fish ecology, graduate courses in population ecology, community ecology, stream ecology, and research methods. With respect to my research is fairly varied, but the central themes are behavior, predator-prey interactions, habitat selection, and population and community ecology of fishes and amphibians. I've conducted research on 4 continents and authored or co-authored 110 scientific papers and 32 refereed scientific journals. As kind of a taking science to the people activity, I also write a bi-monthly column for American Angler magazine called Ask Dr. Trout. And just to forewarn you, I will not take questions about trout fishing. I'm currently on the editorial board of several journals, including Freshwater Biology, Ecology of Freshwater Fish, and Animal Diversity and Conservation. And at earlier stages in my career, I was an editor for Transactions of the American Fisheries Society and COPIA, which is the Journal of the American Society of Ichthyologists and Herpetologists. I'd like to thank all the agency folks for inviting me to participate in this panel. As everyone has mentioned so far, and undoubtedly everyone in this room knows, the Delta is a fascinating but also frustratingly complex system, and we'll all do our best to help you out a little bit. And so thank you.
Jessica Miller, and likewise, thank you for the invitation to participate in this. Currently, I'm an associate professor at Oregon State University, and I'm in the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, but I'm part of the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station, and I'm based in Hatfield Marine Science Center, which is in Newport. And OSU is a land grant, sea grant, sun grant, space grant. So we have 14 experiment stations, and the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station is the only marine experiment station, I think, in the nation. And our work, it's about 12 of us up and down the coast, focuses on research relevant to the conservation and management of Oregon's coastal resources. How I got there, I got a BA in zoology, actually, from the University of Montana, and then spent a little time in Florida on salt marsh mosquitoes, getting involved in wetlands and estuaries, and then received a master's in fisheries from University of Washington, where I actually evaluated the ecological functions of restored and natural estuarine habitats for Chinook and coho salmon. And then I took a rather slow route to formal education. I worked for the Tillamook Bay National Estuary Program, which was based in Tillamook. And for those of you not familiar, that's a EPA state partnership to address issues of conservation science and management relevant to the estuary. And then I actually spent a couple of years working on stream restoration for salmonids in southwestern Washington. For those of you familiar with the Jobs in the Woods programs from the 90s, that involved hiring displaced timber workers, doing riparian alder conversion, large wood placement, as well as the scientific assessment. So we did spawner surveys, red surveys, smolt surveys, riparian surveys, habitat surveys as part of that. And after that, I got a PhD in marine biology at University of Oregon. And I was actually really interested in looking at fish that weren't salmonids, God forbid, but for a while. So there I looked a lot at cross-shelf and along-shore transport of early life history stages of marine fishes. After which I was lucky enough to get a job at OSU. I didn't think I'd get to stay in Oregon. And the program I work on within Coombs is called the Marine and Anadromous Fisheries Ecology Program. So we do a lot with mixing and migration of fishes, adult and early life stages. And I guess the work most relevant to this panel would be trying to better understand juvenile salmon migration patterns and how their size, timing, and growth during migration and early marine residence relates to survival. Done a little bit of work here in Central Valley, retrospectively with adult Central Valley fish that swam into our waters, as well as quite a bit of work recently on juvenile salmon in the Columbia River that's relevant to some of the questions that are relevant here. I teach early life history of fishes, and I participate in the Coastal Ecology and Resource Management course out at the Newport Hatfield Marine Science Center. Spent a lot of time mentoring graduate students and undergraduates. And I'm also part of, OSU is now a member of something called the Living Marine Resources Cooperative Science Center, which is a NOAA-funded project. It's through the Educational Partnership Program, and its mission is to promote underrepresented communities in marine science. So we funds us about 5 graduate students and several undergrad internships, and all of the research is NOAA relevant, and it's direct participation with NOAA scientists. So that's been a neat opportunity that we're currently involved in. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Todd Pearsons, and I grew up in Southern California catching lizards and snakes, and then I went into snorkeling and scuba diving and surfing, so naturally I ended up at University of California, Santa Barbara, where I studied aquatic biology, and I got my bachelor's degree there, and then I moved north up to rainy Corvallis, where I got my master's and PhD degrees in fisheries science. And then I moved further north from there and moved into the Columbia Basin, Central Washington, where I began leading a research team for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, focusing on species interactions, mainly between hatchery and wild fish. And then that morphed into leading a lot more research teams for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I did that for about 16.5 years. And then about 5 years ago, I began working for Grant County Public Utility District, which operates 2 dams on the middle to upper Columbia River. It's one of the larger public utility districts in the nation. And in that capacity, I work on hatchery issues, habitat issues, mitigation, harvest, you name it. Basically trying to balance some of the ecological and economic challenges through science-based solutions. I've also worked with 4 different university or colleges, most recently as an affiliate associate professor at the University of Washington. I'm certified by the American Fisheries Society as a certified fisheries professional, and I've served on a variety of expert panels over the years on a variety of ecological topics, and served as an American delegate on Russian-American salmon conservation talks in Russia and the United States. I've authored or co-authored 145 technical publications, including peer-reviewed publication books and reports. I have evaluated and worked on results of predation or predation topics of many of the main piscivores in the Pacific Northwest, such as smallmouth bass, northern pike minnow, channel catfish, torrent sculpin, rainbow trout, and hatchery origin, Chinook coho, and steelhead. I've developed risk assessment tools, both modeling tools and expert-based frameworks to evaluate the influence of predation on valued species. And finally, I've been involved in developing and implementing and evaluating management approaches to control undesirable predation. This includes things such as harvest regulation, predator removal, hatchery releases, and a variety of other kinds of approaches. So I'm really glad to be here. It's kind of nice to come full circle, come back to California. I'm really glad to be here and look forward to a couple days of science.
Excellent, thank you. Tim?
Good morning. I'm Tim Essington. I just want to reiterate my gratitude for being invited, for being part of this panel. It's already been a really interesting process reading the papers, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days. I'm a product of the Big Ten. I got my Bachelor's of Science at University of Michigan in biology, and then I got a Master's of Science in Fisheries and Wildlife at University of Minnesota, and then finally a PhD in zoology at University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1999. My dissertation work focused on patterns of predation and movement of largemouth bass in small lakes and how that dictates the ability of those species to regulate prey communities. My academic positions began in 2001. I took an assistant professor position at Stony Brook University, and then in 2003 I migrated across the country to where I presently am at University of Washington School of Aquatic and Fisheries Sciences. I was promoted to associate professor in 2007 and full just this year, and I'm presently the Wakefield Endowed Professor. Also, since 2012, I've been the Associate Director of the School of Aquatic and Fisheries Sciences, and I've just recently been appointed the Director of the University of Washington Quantitative Ecology Resource Management, which is an interdisciplinary research graduate program. In 2011, I was named a Pew Marine Conservation Fellow. I currently teach a wide variety of courses that span fisheries conservation and management, ecological modeling, and marine fish ecology. My research program is fairly diverse, but includes a heavy emphasis on understanding predator-prey interactions, particularly in the context of understanding marine food webs. And then, in addition to that, understanding the influence of human interactions on marine food web structures and dynamics. Much of my work, therefore, could be described as ecosystem-based management, so I'm interested in finding scientific solutions to management problems. I would say overall I'm a quantitative ecologist. I heavily rely on models and statistical approaches to test hypotheses about processes that underlie patterns and data. My work is both place-based, focusing on particular ecosystems, and also synthetic, involving several global analysis and comparative analyses across systems. I've authored or co-authored approximately 75 publications. I'm a member of several editorial boards and panels. I'm on the editorial board of Ecological Applications and Ecosystems. Currently a member of the NOAA Science Advisory Board's Ecosystem Science and Management Working Group. I'm a member of the Technical Advisory Board of the Marine Stewardship Council. Also a member of the Science Advisory Board of the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Brett?
Good morning, I'm Brett Johnson. Honored to be here in the company of the colleagues that I'm working with, and really appreciative that the group felt that I could contribute to this issue. I have 3 degrees in zoology. My bachelor's degree is from University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1983. Also a Big Ten fan. I got my master's degree at Ohio State, working with Roy Stein. And then I went back to the University of Wisconsin for my PhD, working at the Center for Limnology with Jim Kitchell and Steve Carpenter. I'm currently a professor in the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology and the graduate degree program in ecology at Colorado State University. And I've been on the faculty there since 1992. Before that, I was a fisheries manager for Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I teach the capstone course for our undergraduate program called Fishery Science, and I also teach a large course in fish biology and biodiversity for students across the university. In my research experience, I consider myself a fisheries ecologist, and by that I mean I have explicit interest in the interaction among the environment, the biota, and humans. And I've been interested in predator-prey dynamics in aquatic systems, and that continues to be a major emphasis of my current research. I have had a number of projects examining predation by introduced piscivores on salmonids and other native species in the Rocky Mountain region. Much of my work employs bioenergetics and population modeling. And I enjoy working closely with management agencies and believe that my prior agency experience allows me to bridge effectively from academia to managers. And on a personal note, I'm a very avid angler and interested in all sorts of fishing. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy Monson, and I do not have a degree in fisheries, but actually I am the physical scientist here. My specialty is hydrodynamic modeling, water quality modeling in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. I have a Bachelor of Science and Master's of Science from the University of Colorado in civil engineering, and then I decided to come west in 1994 to get my PhD at Stanford University in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. I'm part of the Environmental Fluid Mechanics and Hydraulics lab there. Currently, I am at Stanford University as an engineering research associate working on a directed study developing a hydrodynamic model of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta using the multidimensional suntans model. Before that, I worked both at ESA PWA, you might know them as Philip Williams and Associates, where I was on the Breach 3 project and the which was studying Liberty Island, so the interdisciplinary group there. I also worked on the Cascade project. I was at the USGS for working under Jim Klern there, and I was working both on the selenium and the carbon project there, as well as Cascade, which was looking at climate change and how we can downscale climate change down to the specifics of the Delta. So my focus is completely on the Delta. I have a couple of publications, one looking at the effects of flow diversions on water and habitat quality, and looking specifically at the influence of Delta cross-channel export pumps. And I also have done a paper on residence time and transport times, focusing on Mildred Island. So I have an expertise in Liberty Island, Mildred Island, and my hydrodynamic background is focusing on calibration of models, and I'm pleased to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. You know, as folks can see, we have a panel that has a very broad range of topics, and they were specifically chosen to make sure we're covering that, so that as the materials brought forward, either whether it's literature or the presentations, someone on the team is going to have the experience to synthesize that, and both a combination of local and more distant expertise. So thank you very much.